The Lord be with you. Welcome to our daily lectionary note for Saturday, May 16th. Our lectionary readings are Psalm 119, verses 129 to 144, and 145 to 160. Proverbs chapter 26, Isaiah 14, 1 through 17, Acts 2, 22 to 47, and the Gospel according to St. Matthew chapter 21, 18 to 32. We are continuing in our lectionary readings, our lectionary notes, as we study the book of Job together. And today we are in Job chapters 4 through 7. Now, in the early part of Job, in Job 1 and 2, God put Job to the test. Satan afflicted Job. Job's possessions were all wiped out. His children died. And now his three closest friends, his three closest advisors come to counsel him. And in chapter 3, Job raised a complaint. And in this complaint, he cursed the day of his birth. He cursed his own creation. So this next sequence, chapters 4 through 7, actually is the bulk of the book. 4 through 7 is the beginning part, but the bulk of the book is Job's exchanges with his friends. And chapters 4 through 7 is this first part. Now, the friends make various appeals, various accusations. Job either responds directly to them or he laments their words. And this first exchange, chapters 4 through 7, was initiated by Eliphaz the Temanite. Now, there is an Eliphaz listed in Esau's genealogy back in Genesis. Eliphaz is one of Esau's sons. And Eliphaz had a son named Teman. Or Taman. So this supports the theory that Job was an Edomite. He is listed in the genealogy in Genesis. He was Jobab of the Edomites. Now Eliphaz's message to Job begins with an offer to someone who has counseled others. Job has offered wisdom to other people. And now Eliphaz appeals, will you now receive wisdom? Kings rule by wisdom. Job has dealt with difficult dilemmas in the past with wisdom. Now will he close his ears if someone else offers him wisdom? And that's what Eliphaz is suggesting that he is doing. And Eliphaz tells Job, you ought not talk back to God. Job, you are not more righteous than God. You are a mere creature. And what you are doing is foolish. This is not a coincidence that these things are happening to you. The wrath that you are experiencing is not just on you, but it's affecting others. So do not dig into your sin. Instead, Job, you ought to go to God in humility and confession. There is a direct correlation to God's actions. And we can conclude, Job, based on your experience, based on what's happening to you, you've done something wrong. So don't despise what the Lord is doing to you. Now, Eliphaz's words, this speech to Job, this is an immature application of piety. It's Eliphaz trying to make a black and white connection. Bad things have happened before, therefore bad things have brought this on. Now remember the context of Job, brothers and sisters. God has put forth Job for testing. Satan could touch everything that belonged to Job. He could touch everything first his possessions and his family. Then he could strike Job's health. And after the first two testings, Job had nothing left. He's just a guy in the dust of the ground. So where do Job's friends fall into this? Where do his counselors sit within his life? He's lost family members. That's part of his losing. He's lost possessions. Did Job lose friends too? Did he lose support? Was that something, his friends, his support, was that something that was taken away from him? If Job also lost his friends and his close counselors, their participation here in these exchanges would be part of the testing. This testing carried out by Satan. This is part of God's will for Job. The words of Eliphaz would not be helpful as part of Job's temptation. Now, early on, after Yahweh's gracious and loving declaration of Job's faithfulness, Satan puts Job to the test. So keep the temptation of Christ in the wilderness in view here. Job's losses are called, later in chapter 42, they're called an exile into the wilderness. And Job's words are right here. Eliphaz's were not right. At best, Eliphaz offered right theology misapplied to Job's situation. Or Eliphaz's words were a base-level, immature understanding of the faith. Your suffering, your experiencing hardship must be a sin issue. You should repent. Now, sin is the root cause of pain and suffering in the world. The fall of man brought humanity and creation under a curse. But applying that correlation across the board is a bad generalization. So, brothers and sisters, what if the words of Eliphaz were part of Job's testing from Satan? What if Eliphaz is tempting Job in Job's lonely wilderness experience like Satan did to Jesus? What if Eliphaz's words ought to be heard? Job, give up your integrity. Receive this chastening with a stiff upper lip and thank God and move on. All Job has to do is agree with Eliphaz. Confess your sin, Job, and get it over with. Now, in the classic movie Braveheart, there's a scene where Scotsman William Wallace, played by Mel Gibson, is being tortured. And if he simply confesses his allegiance to the British crown, the torture will stop. And he hears the words, put an end to all of this. Get it over with. Now, Job is defending his cause. He is suffering unjustly. And to admit a cause and effect to his own sin would be a lie. So in a sense, Eliphaz is tempting Job to lie. And even though it's hard, Job is clinging to the truth. Jesus is the truth. Job is clinging to Jesus. We cling to Jesus and truth. We love one another in truth. Quick deliverance or escaping pain through lies is not the answer. An easy solution, just get it over with, is not how we ought to look at this. Blameless and upright Job has a righteous complaint. Make that complaint, Job. Brothers and sisters, we ought not confess fake sin. We ought not unnecessarily apologize for righteousness. Now, there is the faithful practice of seeking the peace and not unnecessarily dividing over secondary issues. That is wisdom. But there's also consistently a need to cling to truth at the point of self-sacrifice. That is following Christ. Now, Job's response to Eliphaz's words would reveal his steadfastness. Job was not double-minded. He didn't even speak directly to Eliphaz in response. The friend had turned into a functional arrow against Job. And Job confesses that death is preferred to the unhelpful counsel from his friend. Eliphaz's words are part of God's testing of Job. Job accuses his friends of speaking deceitfulness to him. There were either additional words spoken, not revealed by the Spirit, or Eliphaz speaks on behalf of others. And while Job is faithful to God and standing for and speaking truth, the friends follow after deceit. Job accuses them of that. Now, lies are connected to Satan. He is the father of lies, and this reveals more and more of the temptation dynamic for Job. This is a ground-level conflict between God, truth, and Satan, the father of lies. And Job associates the participation of his friends in his suffering as functional sea monsters, as functional sea dragons. So this wrestling for Job with his friends is part of his maturation process. Job is a king who has provided counsel to others. He is the greatest of the sons of the East. And like King Solomon, perhaps other rulers have come to him for wise counsel. Maybe these three friends are rulers who have received wise counsel from Job previously. But here in this scene, Job has a test of wisdom. These three, if they are leaders, this is truly a battle of wisdom. In the mode of Solomon, Job is not operating a straightforward law temptation. There's not an easy do this, don't do that, black and white solution. It's not an easy dilemma. Kings deal with difficult dilemmas. And Job's friends will not bring wisdom to him. They will bring foolishness. So will Job be like Solomon and wisely cut the baby in two before these three harlots who are appealing foolishness to him? This is the ordeal that our good and gracious God is bringing Job through unto greater maturity and glory. But it's quite a valley of suffering. Job feels disconnected from God. He calls himself an orphan. He is fatherless. Job might cry out, my God, why are you forsaking me?" But his suffering and death, his trusting in God, will be unto resurrection and glory. As Jesus said to the two disciples on the road to Emmaus in Luke 24, "Ought not the Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory?" Brothers and sisters, ought not Job suffer these things to enter to greater glory with God? Until next time, the Lord bless you and keep you.